Da da da, booyaka,
Yeah.
booyaka.
What? Yeah, what?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
What?
You know what I'm saying? We off the Chrysos exam. And this is for those of you that have been following the day one day, 100 days challenge. This counts for today's challenge. So just every once in a while, I'm going to have my brother with me.
Word.
You know what I'm saying? Ladies and gentlemen, Strock the Wolverine.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Your favorite co-host. And I'm Kirk Kennedy, man. We are officially cross-examined, and we are back to the grill again. The grill again. Back to the grill again. The grill again. Brothers and sisters, boys and girls, season 5, episode 18.
18. Yes,
man, do we got a lot to talk to y'all about. But before we do that, if you're watching, if you will be watching, hitting the like and subscribe button. Even if you know we're going to give you some content.
Yes.
You know that. So just let the algorithm, massage the algorithm for us. Hit the like and subscribe button. And let's keep the party going. We got an episode for y'all today. We getting it in, y'all. You know what I'm saying? But you know that's how we get it down. You know, always the homie Brandon is always in the building.
What up, Brandon?
You know what I'm saying? Was always in the building. Brandon said, look, I was out of commission for a sec, but I'm back. Join the club, bro.
Yeah.
We was out of commission too.
Nothing then.
You know what I'm saying? You ain't miss nothing. You know what I'm saying? You didn't miss anything. But we here, we ready to go.
Not in regards to cross-examine anyway.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy.
I think Brandon was at them games. Brandon was at some games this week.
Yeah, I think he was. Man, Brandon, he at KC, Kansas City, he holds it down.
Big UNC fan apparently though.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Hey, did you know this, man? This is totally off topic, right?
What up?
But Robert, I'm encouraged by this because of who it is. Robert F. Kennedy. It's my dude, my peoples. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., listen to this.
What?
Is to formally announce 2024 run for presidential election in Boston.
What?
Yeah. Robert
Who's that? Who's that?
F. Kennedy Jr.
Is that who died on the plane though?
Nah. That's they got the same names though, right?
So that's JFK Jr.?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nah, this is Robert. This is Bobby Kennedy Jr., right?
He's running for president, huh?
Running for president. Making his announcement in
Does
Boston.
he have any? I mean, of course, he has political affiliation by his family. But what's his current position?
He's a Democrat, so I think he's a Democrat.
No, I mean, like as far as office, does he have a current position in office?
I don't know, bro.
Okay.
Because technically, you and I could run for president right now.
Right. That's why I'm asking.
Money,
like Trump kind of broke that mold. You know what I mean? Trump did his thing.
Did. That's gonna be interesting because I haven't heard anybody running against Biden yet. Right. There's no way Biden's going to win another 4 years. There's no way.
Nah, he's doing too many things that are like, man. What?
No.
I forget what I was going to mention to you that he just did that was just crazy. And I can't remember what it was. So
I don't know.
Which is not going to, it wasn't meant for me to talk about it right now.
Yeah, I don't think he's not winning again. Yeah. And so it'll be interesting though because Kennedy has the name, you know.
Right.
That's my dude. Kennedy has the name. All right, man, we got a lot to talk about, man. We can really jump into this. So I want to make this declaration. Some of you would already agree with this. You know this. You know what's up. Some of you would already say this, but we're going to break down sort of how this is working, all right? We're going to break this down. And we'll see what's up with Bobby Kennedy Jr. I'm not a Democrat at all, you know what I'm saying? But I might vote for the Bama just because his name is Kennedy, though. You know what I'm saying? I might be like, or at least I'm with Kennedy, you know.
Right.
It's my kin, right? All right, so I want to make this declaration, and we're going to talk through why we're saying this. But I think it's clear, it's become abundantly clear at this point that sexuality is an official religion. All right? Sexuality is a religion. This is bar none. It's inescapable at this point. It's officially a religion, and we're gonna break down why it's that way, right? What's going on that we see. Many of you see this stuff too. You see it, and so, but you might not put it in these terms because we typically think of religion as something spiritual, something with a particular God, a particular kind of worship, a particular kind of obedience. all of those things, right? We don't really think of things as a religion, but we do live in a culture where people will call inanimate objects sexy. Like I'm still
Facts.
on. How do you call a laptop sexy? Like I remember watching the commercial and the dude was like, "Yeah, look at the lap. It's just sexy." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, fam, you need help, fam. You need real friends in your life, bro."
I
You
got a
don't
friend
have
who calls food that way. Like he talk about food that way.
Like
you know
it's
what I'm
sexy?
saying? Yeah, I mean, we hired him one time to work in the kitchen as a chef too. Like,
I like
and
you said, we
as
had him one
cooks.
time. One time.
And my man talked like it was like food was sexy, man. That was just the way he got down. Especially chicken though.
Chicken?
Real rap.
Because of them thighs, though. He liked them legs and
I
thighs. That's
think
what
that's
it was.
what it was, man.
I mean, chicken got legs, thighs,
Ain't nothing
breasts.
sexy about
man.
chicken though, man. Ain't nothing sexy about it.
Nah,
Like,
it's nothing, bro. I think it's just people are weird, fam. I honestly think you don't have real friends if you name your dogs modern day regular names. If you got a dog, a Doberman Pinscher named Mike, I honestly feel like you need good friends, bro.
Right.
And if you call an inanimate object, food, a car, a laptop, a chair, sexy, fam, I think.
Yo,
man,
my homie's son named his dog Charles.
I don't get
It's
it.
Charles. Like his name is Charles, fam.
Charles is a little bit older name. It's a little older, right? Like them. So when you start getting into that Charles, Henry, you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Okay. That's the
Montgomery.
standard. All right.
So I'm
bet.
saying modern names. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
We on that like this is how they came up with the age of accountability doctrine. Like the same
This
type of
is it.
concept.
Same concept. This is it. How you gonna name your dog Steve?
I might have
Steve,
just
what
made
you
somebody mad.
Right. I mean, if it's an older name, if it's a modern name, I think you have a problem. I think you need real friends. All right. Sexuality is a religion. And what's crazy about this is we're going to talk about why. So let's start with just all right. So Dylan Mulvaney, I don't know how many of you know who he is. Dylan Mulvaney and the Bud Light fiasco. All right. So Dylan Mulvaney is a trans woman. Sometimes when it gets confusing, so whenever you hear the T of the acronym, I always think that word means opposite, right?
Right.
So I always think opposite. So if you're
man.
in the sexual acronym community, the T is the opposite of what they're claiming to be, right? So Dylan Mulvaney has made significant headlines. He did a TikTok posting every day for a year called, I think it was called like My Journey of Being a Girl or something like that.
Yeah.
So he did like every day for 365 days. Now this is to use the language of the culture. He was assigned male at birth, right? So the dude, he's a dude. You know what I'm
By
saying?
God.
So
Yeah.
by God, he's a dude, right? Yeah. He was fearfully and wonderfully made as a dude.
Right.
But he would now say that he's the T of the acronym community.
Mm-hmm.
And
community.
the T, right? And on top of that, he even has like he did like this thing where he was basically acting like a 6-year-old girl.
That's so wild to me, man.
Isn't that crazy, bro?
That's so wild to me, fam.
That's so
I can't.
see, he was like a 6-year-old girl. So you're a grown man who thinks he's a woman, but you're acting like a girl. And your romantic interests are other men, right? So I mean, it's just crazy, right?
Yeah,
I think it's wild,
yeah.
and I think it was crazy. You know what gets me, bro? How is it that people hate women so much,
right?
that you will entertain this as something that's real?
Right.
That's why I don't understand that. Like
how are dudes dressing up as women winning women beauty competitions?
That's crazy.
How is that popping off? Like for an entire state, you gonna tell me the prettiest woman in that state is a dude? Come on, man. Like that's just not. That don't even sound right.
Nah,
man.
it's crazy.
It shouldn't even sound right to people. You know what I'm saying?
Crazy.
Like,
and it's not. And we know this. And there's a deeper agenda going on, which Strike and I have said, and we'll talk about that on a different episode. But for today's purposes, let's just talk about. All right. So, and here's the thing to me, man. I think I said this in one of my videos a couple of days ago. I think it was day 2 when I did digital blackface. I think there is this sense where we're trying to create a culture of where people seem like, hey, I'm just trying to be loving and all the things that the Bible says. So they want the kingdom without the king, right? You want to live in a space where you're just inclusive, you're showing love, including everyone, but it's just not realistic. It can't happen that way because in order to be a believer, Hebrews 5:14 says, but solid food is for the mature who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil.
Right.
So once you distinguish good from evil, you're discriminating, you can't be inclusive. That's the whole premise of it.
Right.
Is that there's some things that are good and some things that are evil, and you have to distinguish what those are. You cannot just say, oh, we're including everything. So just by default, if you're a believer and you believe that Hebrews 5:14 is what we're supposed to be, constant, mature, training our, then you can't be that way. So that's the challenge that we face, right? And what's sad is many believers are so afraid they get offended as if you're being unloving. So it's just like, hey, look, man, I've been called a nigga and a bunch of other stuff. I'll be unloving then if that's what that means. Because I can't, because what you're calling me, what you're asking me to do is to be a liar, right? Now I got to be a liar to be loving. And so I got to sin just to be loving, right?
And not just you got to be a liar, but you actually have to kind of be insane.
Yeah.
You have to go against what we've known to be true in existence biologically forever, and you have to go against that and now act as if though, hey, we've learned something new.
Right.
You can
All right.
actually,
So yes. So Dylan Mulvaney has made a splash on TikTok with these videos, and in the culture we're in, people embraced it. What surprised a lot of people, though, was that Bud Light ended up giving him a sponsorship, and so he did a little brief commercial that showed a Bud Light can with him on it, right? So Bud Light. Now remember, this is Bud Light. Like, I'm not a beer drinker personally. I think beer tastes like cold urine, right? So I don't do it. I mean, I remember pretending like I liked beer one day. I drank a couple Heinekens. It was just too strong. Coronas I could get with, but I'm not a Bud. But I do. What I do remember about Bud was when they had, remember them Bud wines? Remember them joints with
the frogs? The frogs. Them joints
those were good joints, right?
Yeah, the commercials was great. What I can tell you about Budweiser, as far as the persona that it has, I mean, amongst the Hispanic community, Budweiser, prior to Corona, Budweiser was the joint. Like, even to the old head Ricans now, they want Budweiser. Oh yeah.
What about Bud Light?
I mean, Bud Light, sure. Like, they'll bang Bud Light. The older they get, the less carbs they want. You know what I mean? Like, right. But yeah, Budweiser is the brand. Bud Light, whatever.
Okay. Right. So Bud Light, and so a lot of people are flipping out. So so if you're, depending on who you are, you're obviously going to process this a certain way. Right. So if you're on the right, you're flipping out, saying this is crazy, and you're in the Matt Walsh world. It's like, this is insane. And if you're on the left, you're acting like, oh, look at these whiny babies crying about something. He's not bothering you. He's not hurting you, and all of that stuff. And it's like, here's the thing. Let me just say this about that particular argument for the sexual acronym community. On one level, I understand what people say when it's like, he's not hurting anyone. He's not hurting, all this stuff. In terms of physical pain, I feel none from anything that anyone does in the sexual acronym community. Right. If that's how we're defining hurt. The problem is, but where the hurt comes in, it's not in where you're actually physically hurting me. Where the hurt comes in is I can be punished either through my economically or socially if I don't support what you're doing. Right. And that's a rare occasion that you've seen that happen. Right. So even if you say, hey, it's not hurting anyone, in the grand scheme of physical pain, you're totally right. Anyone can do whatever they want in their bedroom and all of that. But the sexual acronym community doesn't. They
are causing pain to each other, though. I'm sorry.
They are. No, they are. That's clear. I remember reading an article, a book about. Actually, I got it back here. It's called "The God of Sex." It's right behind me. Right. And it was a story about. Well, it was a bunch of stories, but one of the stories was about these doctors in San Francisco that said that every weekend they would have these guys being rushed into the emergency room because their rectums were destroyed.
That's so
And,
wild.
and when you heard this is a doctor telling the story.
Right.
It was really like, wow, it was really sad, man. It made you really feel, we can push back against stuff and it seems like there's hatred. But in many ways, it's just like dang, I feel bad on one level.
Well, I mean, from our position, spiritually speaking, we know that they're enslaved. They're in bondage.
100%.
You know what I mean? So that's how we look at them as Christians. It's not even from being a high horse perspective or some,
we got our own issues. No one's coming
right.
down the mountain with 2 stone tablets, right? Like
right. But that's how we speak about the issue is from that position, like the desire to rescue them from what they're doing to themselves is it's great. It's there.
Right. So this guy Dylan Mulvaney, I don't know if there's a lot of pushback. So Bud Light and now here will be interesting, bro. This will be interesting. All right. This is how you'll know if this is because this is what I honestly think, bro. I think that a lot of people do not agree with the sexual acronym community, right? I think it's less a conviction based on what I genuinely believe and more a fear of man about what will happen if I don't. Now, here's what will be interesting. If Bud Light decides to pull the ad because that will show you that this is more about capitalism than a conviction of the heart. Right. That's what you'll see. And I think a lot of this stuff, the acknowledgement, the approval of the sexual acronym, it's all based on, hey, if people are accepting it and we can make money from it, let's do it. These companies are about making money. So if this dude is blowing up and they can make money, that's what they're going to do, right? They're going to do
I agree with that. I think for a lot of it, that was the initial jump on board
100%.
For a lot of businesses. But I think also, we have to account for how much time has passed, for how many people have gone to universities that are now in those upper positions within those companies that truly believe, a lot of these agendas, and they want to progress them and grow those agendas. So that we got to account for that too. That's there.
We're not discounting that. But what I'm
that's
saying
definitely
is,
there.
From a corporate perspective, because for me, when I hear you say that,
old money
my
perspective.
mind goes is more political, sociological. That's different than capitalistic, right?
Right.
So from a corporate, if Bud Light feels like this is going to hurt our bottom line, watch them pull them ads, right? They'll pull ads quick if it's going to hurt their money. But if it's really a conviction, like for me personally, for Strack personally, Strack owns a restaurant. I lead a church, right? Right. Our convictions are firm enough that we'll take the consequences for these convictions and not like, we need to change because people are getting offended. Right. If people start leaving my church because of the positions that we think are biblical and they're changing, then I'm just going to end up losing the church that way. I'm not going to change positions because I need the money. I need income. You're not going to keep your restaurant open if it compromises with your conviction on biblical truth, right? So again, in the culture, a lot of what we see happening, there's 3 levels. There's a political, sociological, and an economical. From the economic perspective, it'll be interesting to see if Bud Light pulls it, if they get a lot of backlash, because they don't want their bottom line hurt. No matter what you say about America, no matter what you think about the left and the right, everyone's a capitalist and everyone's trying to make money, right? So anyway, these ads have happened and it's blown up, and depending on what you think about this person, this Dylan Mulvaney, there is a sense where, okay, it's really, really, on many levels, it's already come to a head, but it's becoming clearer that sexuality is officially a religion. It is a religion. And I would say the proponents of modern sexuality function in identical ways as organized religion. And I would say one step further, they function in identical ways of organized religion, and at least right now, they get privileges that are no longer given to organized religion, particularly Christianity.
Right.
Right. They get privileges that are no longer. So let me prove the point. All right. I have in front of me a book. This is a kid's book called The Gay BCs. Okay. That's the book. I bought this off of Amazon. And the book is, this is typical stuff. I got 3 boys, 15, 14, and 11. These are the kinds of books I would have read to them when they were little. And each of these is going through all of it. So let me just go through a couple of these. A is for arrow and ace. Words we say that love and attraction may be felt in many ways. All right. B is for, this is the book, B is for bi. You can shout it loud. I like more than one gender, and that makes me proud. Right. So this is again. Remember, this is a kid's book. At this age, this is for kindergarten to second grade. All right. C is for coming out. You're ready to share what you feel deep inside. It's okay to be scared. All right. D is for drag. You can strut and dance in clothes that you love, dresses, heels, or pants, right? These people don't have good bars right now, right? E is for equality. We're on the same team. We all have the right to love, hope, and dream, right? And it just goes down the list in every letter, every letter. G is for what, obviously?
Gay.
Sure, right? Let's keep it. Hey. Survey said, listen.
Right.
I is for intersex. Some are born with different parts. Everybody and everybody is an amazing work of art, right? So this is a book that you're allowed to say. L is for, of course,
right,
lesbian. It's love and affection, right? So this is a book that can be bought and taught to second through kindergarten. I mean, kindergarten
on
through
purpose.
Intentional. This is intentional,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Now let's take this for a second. Now this book is in schools. This is one of many books that I saw as one of the top books being taught in elementary schools. Keep in mind that kids at that stage of life are the most impressionable. Right. They're so impressionable and so like immature in understanding life that we would never let them do stuff like smoke, drive. They can't. Man, kids can't even choose their own dinners, right? Well, I want McDonald's. But no, you can't have that. You got to eat vegetables. I don't want vegetables. You wouldn't even let kids have that. You would never leave a 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, a kindergartner at home by themselves while you went out on a date or something.
Yeah, I mean, this again comes back to why I think it kind of has gone beyond capitalism,
sure.
To the ideology, and like you're talking about to a religion,
yeah.
Because look at what they're using. They're using books that help, like, if you think back, those are the same kind of books that were used in school to teach American history, to teach American culture. You know what I'm saying? How families should be. So now they're doing the same tactics that were used when we were kids, but just to teach, the new sexual revolution. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
now keep in mind, because you keep going back to this, I want to make sure you understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's all capitalism. What I'm talking about is if Bud Light does
right. No doubt, no doubt.
I definitely grow. It's not even. It's deeper than that. This is a spiritual warfare issue. So I'm hip. I'm only saying capitalism.
Yeah, it'll just be interesting to see how much it sways Budweiser. You saying?
Right.
Yeah,
I think that they're just. The point that I'm trying to make is that I don't think a lot of companies are really for it. I think they're for it if it leads to profit. Mm-hmm. Right. If it doesn't lead to profit, then they'll pull it.
Companies they like being adventurous and the new. They like being the discoverers of the next most outstanding thing that we can do to draw attention to us.
100%, right.
You know what I mean? So that's what they're doing. Like you take this person, you put them on a can for Budweiser or Bud Light. Where's that been done before? Where's that been seen at?
Right.
At least not on a beer can. You know what I'm saying?
No.
And it's not like it could go either way. Like dudes who bang with Budweiser might be like, well, that's Bud Light. That's who we say drinks Bud Light anyway.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? Like that.
Right.
They could just rock like that and it might still make them money.
Right. No, I probably could for real.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, I can tell you right now, Bud is not wise.
They're not wiser.
Because they're lying about right? So here's the thing though. So this book is here, right? This book is allowed to be in schools. We've all seen drag queens in schools and all this stuff. Here's what I mean about it has more privileges than organized religion. You're not allowed in most states to have a book that says Jesus created you and made you this way.
Nah.
A is for, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
C is for Christ who died. You couldn't do that, right?
Nah.
You couldn't do that. You can't. It's offensive to bring up Christianity in many circles of our country where this kind of stuff that is offensive to many people is allowed to do it. So it is functioning like an organized religion, and we'll get to that in just a second. But it also has more of the privileges than organized religion used to have. There's so many laws that get passed about what you can and can't say, prayer in schools, all this stuff. It's really crazy right now, bro. Mm-hmm. Like when I saw this book and some of the other books, I was like, wow. First thought I had was, I'm glad my kids aren't little, like not toddlers. They're not like babies. But I would teach my kids differently. But I'm just saying, just that they don't have to be sitting there listening to this stuff. They got different challenges because they're older, but they've seen life in different ways, and so it's pretty interesting.
I couldn't imagine being out like back in the regular workforce 9 to 5 like the way I was for a long time. Because I remember when things began to change in regards to like meetings on insurance, health insurance, and all those. Then they started talking about being open-minded, being I forget what the phraseology was back then when they first started. You know what I'm saying? But either way, they wanted you to be.
It was tolerant back in the day.
Yeah, tolerant. It was an old word that I'm thinking of. But either way, like I just can't imagine being scared of misgendering someone.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
dead naming.
Like all these categories that they've now developed on how to charge people and basically identify people as bigots. I can't imagine living under the pressure of that. Like I remember living under the pressure of being careful not to, say something or do something or look at a female the wrong way, when it was all that whole big thing that, was popping off with like sexual offense and all of that stuff. So I just can't imagine, fam, what it's like today for people living with that and around that. Because people are being hired all the time, who are capable of working that have different life identity issues going on.
Well, what's interesting? So it's funny you say that, right? It's funny you say that. I feel like we're living in the sexual Mishnah. All right, so let me explain to you what the Mishnah is. So the Mishnah in the Old Testament this kind of happened in the intertestamental period between, for us, in terms of biblically speaking, from Malachi to Matthew. We call it the intertestamental period. If you're Roman Catholic, you call it the deuterocanonical period, right? And that's where you get the Apocrypha and all these books.
The Maccabees.
Right. During that time is when the Pharisees really rose up. They were the sort of back to the Bible pastors of the day, right?
They maintained the scrolls.
Right, all of that. And so...
400 years of silence.
It was 400, right. So what they did was they had a document called the Mishnah, right? And these were 613 laws that you could not commit on the Sabbath.
Man-made.
613. Oral tradition.
Right.
Man-made. Not stuff that the Bible said, right?
Right.
And part of Jesus's offense towards them was when he said stuff like, you burden people with all of these rules, right? But you don't lift a finger to do anything out, right? Part of Jesus's beef with them is you've created these laws and demanding that people obey them when they have nothing to do with God or his glory.
Right.
And that was a main reason why Jesus was frustrated. And the Mishnah is directly connected to 613 laws. Fam, there's no way you're not going to break a law when you got to keep 613 of them.
That's why Christ died on the cross, fam, 100%. Because the Levitical law was just as big. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, yeah.
So I'm saying that to say, this is very similar to what Jesus was offended at, all of these laws. And now we have these new social contract laws, which you were talking about.
Right.
Now you're misgendering, you're dead naming, all these different things. And what's interesting is people can change from one day to the next.
Yeah.
One day to the next. You can say I identify as a woman on Tuesday.
That's right. That's right.
And then 2 weeks later, you're non-binary. And then 3 weeks later, you identify as a man. And we're supposed to know each and every one of those things.
Yeah.
And if we're offended, this is where it becomes kind of maddening. And here's
it's very arbitrary.
It's very arbitrary. But here's the other deeper side of it. Think about what's actually happening. So we are given by God 5 senses. Unless you like the movie Sixth Sense, go ahead and add 6 to it. All right? But we're given these senses. And part of being made in God's image is that we're given these senses. And to some degree, even it's so significant that even if we lose one, another one might be stronger, right? So if people who may be blind, they can't see, but their hearing is more acute.
Right.
Or they can't hear, but they see things, right? Like the senses are fundamentally a part of what's being made in God's image, right? You have them, all of us have them. And again, when I say that, there are obviously some people with some different kinds of challenges.
There's
May
exceptions.
not have all of them, but for the most part, we all have these five senses: taste, smell, touch, sight, hear, all of that, right? If you're starting to get to a point where I cannot trust the foundational senses that I have, like if I can no longer say that is a woman because of the way that she looks, and I can get in trouble for that, then I ultimately cave on believing and trusting the fundamental senses that God has given me. Right? I don't trust them anymore. I can't trust my eyes. I think that could be, but I don't want to say, oh, she sounds like a guy. I don't. So again, this is much deeper than just what we're talking about, capitalism, or it's eroding everyone's fundamental right and fundamental reality of being made in God's image and having communicable attributes like God does. I no longer can trust them. And so now what I'm trusting is the cultural sort of understanding of these things. And if it rivals my individual senses, I'm submitting to those anyway. I'm getting rid of them. That is a dangerous place to be, because now I lose my rational ability.
Right.
You lose. So you talk about mental health problems.
Delusion.
We're saying the people who struggle in the sexual acronym community have mental health problems. But what's happening is, if I can no longer trust the rationale of my eyes, my ears, my taste, then I start to have mental health problems. You see what I'm saying? All of a sudden now I have mental health problems because I cannot use the rational sense in which God has created me. I cannot trust those senses. So then I start to believe, like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know what's true and what's false. And that paves the way for way more serious things.
Right. Somebody brought up Canon Christ, brought up, she gets called bruh all the time by her daughter.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting because I hear that all the time too, from my granddaughter, from my daughter. Like, you hear them call girls bruh. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Bruh. Like, so, I mean, in today's world, that's misgendering.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, real rap. So, I mean, yet these young people at the same time are being rebellious against what is made common or made the new laws.
It's the Mishnah. It's the sexual Mishnah, right? So now I got to keep all these laws that it's impossible for me to keep. Right. And so if it's guess what's going to happen? If it's impossible for me to keep all these laws, then I'm going to be too afraid to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. And then that becomes, I remove myself from society. I remove myself. If you're a believer, we talked about Hebrews 5, right? The powers of discernment. Solid food is for the mature, Hebrews 5:14. For those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil. If I don't trust the senses that God's given me, then I won't trust the mind that God's given me to understand those senses. I cannot distinguish good from evil anymore.
Right.
And then it's just like, boom, I don't know what to think.
And, the reality is playing both sides, this neutral side, where you're not going to say anything, but the truth, but you're going to be careful because you want to be neutral somehow. It just never works. You will eventually have to stand for truth or stand for a lie. That's just the reality. I mean, it even plays out in nations with, like I heard about today with Finland. They just joined NATO. Why? Because they're scared of Russia. You know what I'm saying? Like these people were neutral from the Cold War, from the gate. They were like, nah, we're not joining Finland and Sweden too. And they was like, we're not joining either side. You know what I'm saying? This is how it's going to be. Well, after Russia bum rushed Ukraine, guess what Finland decided to do, who has the largest border near Russia? They was like, yo, we want to be a part of NATO. What's good? You know what I'm saying? Because they realized the threat. you must realize the threat that is out there. It's the reality. Like, you must decide, will I stand for truth or will I stand for a lie? The threat is not a people group that is coming against you. The threat is for your soul. The threat is for the reality, the truth. Will you stand with Christ or will you stand with the lie? Which all lies and liars will burn in the lake of fire. That's what the word of God says. Yeah. So it's not to be caught up in the political agendas of one side over another and all of that stuff. It's truth versus a lie, man. It's just, that's just where we're at.
Well, and I think we've been here for some time, but I think this is where it goes back to me for capitalism and economics, is I think what will most people will get people. I remember a while ago. What season was it? We did the Mark of the Beast. Was that season 3?
Yeah, it was a while ago. So yeah, it might have been, or maybe it was season 4. It might have been season 4. Yeah, I think it was because it was in the middle of COVID.
Right. Okay. Season 4. Right.
COVID shots and all of that stuff going on.
Yeah, because people talking about is that the Mark of the Beast.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. If you got a shot, it's like ridiculous, right?
Yeah. I mean, some people still think that.
Some people do, and I think those people need good friends. All right. So
yeah,
they need real friends. It's not the Mark of the Beast, right? It's not the Mark of the Beast. I got a shot. There's a chip in me. That's not.
Go listen to our episode.
Yeah, go listen to it. So, all right. If you really think about, there was a time, bro, when I would read Revelation, and I would think there's no way that all these people are going to just follow this thing and not someone's going to be like, there's no way that's the beast. Like, I used to think there's no way possible, because there's going to be people who are saying what's going on, and people are just not going to ride with it, right?
The delusion is real, man.
100%, bro. But this is a long time ago. I'm not saying this what I thought last week.
Right.
This was 15, 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago, longer than that. This is a long time ago. I used to think this. But now as I watch what's happening in society, and I watch even how some believers are, for fear of economic or social or political rejection, they're submitting to a lot of this stuff. I'm convinced now, like, oh, this is how it happens. This is how, like, you get people who are afraid of the consequences. And this gets into a deeper issue, particularly in America. In America, if you're an American Christian, for the most part, I don't want somebody at me like, you don't know my life, I've been through a lot. For the most part, right? For the most part, you're suffering, for the most part. You got to say it 5 times for people to hear it once. Compared to other Christians in other parts of the world, our sufferings are not the same. Not on the same level. Particularly for those who are in countries where if they find out you're a Christian, they'll kill you or put you in prison or some type of harm, right? I'm not talking about personal suffering, like people sinning against you, I'm just saying in terms of your faith, we really don't have it like that bad. Right. In
America's different. All the way around. It's different.
It's different.
It's different.
And one of the things that I think has been detrimental to how great America is that there is an underlying Christianity that there's like different kind of denominations that we don't talk about, no one knows about. So you and I, for years, have been talking about the theological denomination,
right?
Where it's like you're so into politics and that your politics drive your faith more than the scriptures do, right?
They've intertwined way too much.
And that leads you to culture war theology, right?
Right.
Where everything is about the culture war with the political
us versus
opposition.
Them.
Right. There's another underlying thing that's not shockingly simple, but I'm seeing it really come to the surface. There is a suffer-free salvation that's another denomination, right? And because many Christians, at least in our lifetime, haven't suffered for being a Christian, we've kind of accepted and even to some degree presumed that Christianity won't require a lot of suffering for being a Christian, right? Most of it would be, I'm fighting against and resisting certain temptations. And that in and of itself, if I want to give into lust and pornography, or if I want to do whatever, there are times where that's a form of suffering because I'm fighting against a strong desire to want that.
Right.
But in the grand scheme, I think there is a denomination that many professing Christians subscribe to. It's, I don't want to suffer for being a Christian.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to state the obvious, but it's because people aren't reading the Bible. That's just the reality. Because if you read the Bible, there's a clear theology of suffering. I mean, even if you're just interested in the life of Christ, and you're interested in, knowing about this Jesus, that he was a good teacher, you know what I'm saying, that most people present him as. Even if you just go there, you're gonna see a whole lot of suffering. You know what I mean? You see a lot of healing from suffering, but the story ends, with a pretty climactic point of suffering. You know what I'm saying? And then the resurrection. So like
Shazam. Right, 100%. So I think so I agree with that. But I think there are but I think there are, so I agree that there are people not reading their Bibles in the most biblical sense. Like in Luke 10, I love when Jesus said this. So you got this teacher who walks up and says, this is the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? And he asked Jesus, a teacher, what is written in the law? What's the greatest commandment? And Jesus says, well, you know the scriptures. He said, how do you read it, right?
Right.
That's the question back to the dude. How do you read it? And I think I think you're right. People don't read, but I think along with that, I think there's an assumption that because God is two things, because we live in America and we're largely sheltered for being persecuted for our faith, largely. And we also think that the goodness of God protects his people from suffering. Mm-hmm. I think there is this subtle atheological perspective where I don't want to suffer. So if the pressure comes on to suffer, then there isn't the resolve to suffer for that way. We don't have the Hebrews 11. These people did not receive what was promised, but they were in sackcloth and ashes. They were beaten, sawn in two, but they were looking forward to a better country, right? We don't have the Hebrews 11:25 and 26 where Moses choosing rather to be mistreated, right, than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin, right? So there's a sense where this is it's a struggle for many believers. And we don't want to suffer for what we believe in, but we want all the benefits, right? We want salvation, but we don't want the suffering, right?
Right.
And it's the culture we live in. We got people who go get all these surgeries to look different, There's a lot of people that are like, I'm going to get a tummy tuck. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you didn't have to do the work to get there. You just did some surgeries, right? That's the culture we live in. We live in a, remember when there used to be no pain, no gain. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now there's, it's no pain but gain, right? That's kind of the undergirding.
It's interesting that you say that because even with the no pain, no gain mentality, there's this objective that you're going towards. There's this goal that you have set that is longed for, that's treasured, that's worth more to you than the pain you have to go through to get there.
Right, yeah.
So like that, it comes back to what do we desire as a people? What do we long for as a people? Like, are we like Christ taking upon ourselves the cross, longing to see the Father, knowing that this cross is how I'm going to get to the Father? You know what I'm saying? Like that thing set before me. Is that there for us? It's a real question for us, because if we're not willing to suffer, do we really believe that he's waiting for us, that he's receiving us, and that he's keeping us?
Yeah. No, that's real, bro. I think that can be lacking. So, all right. So we said that there is that proponents of modern sexuality function in identical ways to organized religion. So let's prove this point. All right. So here's how organized religions function, and you'll see this happening in connection with this. So the first thing that organized religions do is they share their faith, right? You share your religion with other people, right? You see this happening all throughout sort of the sexual acronym community stuff.
For sure.
You share your faith, share your religion with other people, right?
I mean, they like hip hop, fam. They in everything right now.
Well, in everything, bro.
Yeah.
And so that's it's either it's an ally, it's this or that, but you're sharing your faith. This is what organized religions typically do. They share what they believe with other people, and you see this happening hand over fist. And not even just the people within the sexual acronym community, but you see this happening in the economic sort of political sphere, right? So it's deeper than just that. But they're sharing their faith for them. Right? They're sharing their faith. So when Bud Light gives this guy an endorsement deal, you're sharing his faith by endorsing him. You know what I'm saying? So that's the first way that you see that happening. Here's a second thing that organized religions do. They share their faith and they expect conversion to their beliefs. Like we go out and we share the gospel, right? We share what we believe, we share our faith, and we hope that there will be organized religion. I mean, there will be people who will believe it. They will convert to us. And we get excited. We love it when we go out, and share the gospel, and then people profess to believe in Jesus.
Right.
We pray with them. We get excited. Like there is a sense where we expect some conversion to our beliefs. When you share your faith, you expect conversions to your belief.
Oh yeah.
And the sexual acronym community functions like a religion, organized religion in that sense. There is an expectation and that people will convert to what they believe.
Right.
And we see it happening all over the place, right? The number 3 thing that organized religions do is they find their identity in their beliefs. I fundamentally find my identity as a believer.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about like theological terms like union with Christ, and my identity is in Christ, and so I identify with my faith. I don't just share it. I don't expect to find, but it is my fundamental identity.
Right. I mean, Galatians 2:20. It is no
100%.
longer I who lives, but Christ who lives in me.
Right. And the interesting thing about the sexual acronym community is that when you challenge them, part of their evangelism strategy, right, is to say, hey, you're hurting who I am. Like if you give another example, like, so if I identify as a dog, I'm a dog. It's like, yeah, but that's not intrinsic to who I am though. A dog is not intrinsic, they'll find ways to say your disapproval of who I am is connected. It's not the same thing because my sexuality is fundamentally a part of my identity.
Right.
And just like an organized, just as like I and you, Strike, and others, we find our identity in our beliefs. Then we when we share it with other people, we expect conversions, and we want their identity to be in the same beliefs that we have. This is exactly what you see happening with books like this,
right?
And many other. There is a sense where sexuality is a fundamental identity. Mm-hmm. It is intrinsic to. Remember, that's what they were trying to. That's what they was. There was all this. What's it called? Remember that Born This Way kind of perspective?
Yeah.
Lady Gaga led in that, and it's like I always used to tell people. I thought this is where the Lord is kind of amazing, because even if you could prove that you were born this way, the whole point of being a Christian is that you're born again. Again, exactly. Right. So it doesn't matter if you were born this way. You're born again. There's certain ways that I was born. Right. And I gotta be born again, right? So, but there is a sense where that was trying to make it about this is my identity. This is my core identity. This is what we see happening in the sexual acronym community, and this is where many believers are also giving into this, because for them, their identities are more in their sexuality than in the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. Right. And that's happening.
And I mean, that means like that's really weighty when you think about things, because if you consider a Christian identifying with Christianity, for them, they're saying that their entire worldview, their reality, the truth that they stand upon is based upon who Christ said he was and is. Yeah, right. I mean, that's how we identify, right? It's a major deal. So when somebody takes up identity from a sexual perspective and they embrace that, they're now deciding to view the entire world, reality, truth, their entire foundation is built upon what they feel sexually and who they are sexually. Mm-hmm. That's a major deal. You know what I'm saying? Deal, like, bro. Because they're tied to that.
That's a good point too.
Yeah. Even in conversation, when you're talking to someone from that perspective, you have to use wisdom, and how do you maneuver in conversation, because this person is under the delusion that their entire identity is wrapped up in one very small part of their body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
And
know what I mean?
if we wanted to go here, which we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but if you really want to go there, a lot of the identity, sexual identity, is is intrinsic to pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're talking about really is, physical pleasure that is one of the greatest physical pleasures that
Right.
God created.
We're designed that way.
Yeah, you're really dealing with pleasure in the pursuit of pleasure. And that's why people get caught up in sexuality, because the pleasure that comes from, sexuality, orgasms, things like that.
Right.
That can be a very gripping, the pleasure from that, the endorphins in the brain, the things that happen in your brain,
Mm-hmm.
those things set off a kind of a chemical reaction to want that more and more. Right?
Yeah,
This is why we both have known women. I've known women who have been in horribly abusive relationships, like abusive, but stayed because the sex was good.
right.
I mean, I'm just like, wow, are you serious, man? It's like the sex is good, so they're not going to leave.
Or they
And
live in
again-
this particular lifestyle because they need that.
Because it's connected to pleasure in that sense.
The other thing I think people forget is that the Bible talks about this reality that we become the idols that we create.
Yeah.
Like you become like them.
Yeah.
And not only do you become like them, but you suffer the same judgment they suffer.
Right.
So what I mean by that is, like, when you consider the story of Achan, when Israelites attacked Ai and they failed. You know what I'm saying? Achan had taken stuff from Jericho when he wasn't supposed to, because everything was devoted unto the Lord for destruction. Well, when it came out that he took it, they took what he took and they burned it along with his whole family. I mean, it was all destroyed because it was supposed to be destroyed unto the Lord. So Achan suffered the same fate as what he idolized.
Right.
He found himself identifying with something that he longed for, that he wanted, and his identity, and even in judgment, was wrapped up in that same thing. And that's what happens with this as well. Whatever we idolize, we become it, and we not only become it, but we also join it in judgment.
Yeah, 100%. Sadly, many people think that they're exempt from judgment because there's
Right.
a twisted view of. All right, so you got number one. This is how organized religion and proponents of sexuality function in identical ways as organized religion. First, they share their faith just like you do your faith, right?
Right.
Two, they expect conversion to their beliefs. You expect people to respond and believe the gospel. You expect people to respond and believe your understanding of sexuality.
Right.
Three, they find their identity in their beliefs, and as we've been talking about. Here's a fourth way. They believe what they believe is absolute truth.
Yeah.
Right? So
what
this
we
is
just talked about.
You ask any organized religion, a genuine, especially the old school ones, not these new religions where people just be like, everything is whatever. All roads lead, all dogs go to heaven, and then they get bit by a pit bull and think differently. So like what you think is, when you think about it, it's like there's a sense where all the old religions proclaim a degree of exclusivity. They believe that what they're teaching is absolute truth. Mm-hmm. Jehovah's Witnesses go out and knock on doors and try to convert. They believe that what they believe is absolute truth, right?
Yeah.
The Mormons believe that what they believe is absolute truth. Muslims believe that. Christians believe that. Judaism. There's this sense where my belief is absolute truth.
And what that means is
The
you
truth.
you view the world from that perspective.
100%. So when you think your sexuality, your sexual preference is absolute truth, what that also does is it makes you dig in your heels even when someone challenges the validity of that. And to be honest with you, it's the same way I am. How many times have we, Strack, heard people challenge the validity of the Bible and we ain't buying it?
Right.
We ain't buying it because
Right.
we are convinced that what we believe. Listen, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I would rather believe the quote unquote lies of Scripture than the truth of an atheist.
Facts.
You will never get me to believe the truth that you say about that the Bible has lies in it. Man, I could care less. I'm taking my chances with the good old book, not with your perspective. You will never. I'd rather believe the lies of Scripture than the truths of atheists and agnostics. You ain't getting me. So it's just like, I'm too stubborn, fam. I ain't changing.
There's good reason to be stubborn in that
There's
regard.
good reason to be stubborn. I'm going to be stubborn with it, Oh, just call me stubby. I'm going to be stubby with it, fam. But you believe I believe that Christianity is absolute truth.
Amen.
Even if you think you're poking holes in it, I don't care. They poked a hole in Jesus and blood and water came out. I'm with it.
Right.
I got something for everything. You know what I'm saying?
Paul said, Christ and Christ crucified, man. That's it. We don't come with eloquent speech. You know what I'm saying?
So again, this is what the sexuality, proponents of modern sexuality function in this way. They believe what they believe is absolute truth. Now, let me tell you why we're saying this. We're telling you all of this not so that we can be self-righteous or judge these people. Yeah, we definitely disagree, and I definitely am not going to be able to monetize this video. So I'm not even going to try. But
we drop way too many assaults and all of that.
Well, I'm not. We might even get flagged. It is what it is. I was going to say, hey, isn't this the American flag? It is what it is. We probably lost a couple of subscribers. It is what it is, man. Do what you do, fam. I'll see you up top, right? If you make it, But the reality is, though, we're telling you this because we want you to understand this, the way, if you're a believer, if you're of the Christian tradition, and even if you're not, if you're watching, like, let me just watch this. Even if you're not a Christian, there are certain things that you believe to be true. Even if it's like, well, the universe, if you believe in the universe, it's like, okay, cool. You believe in these same things. When you talk about, well, the universe always does, that's you find your identity in that. Right?
Or even just the fact that, the statement that there is no absolute truth. That in itself is a statement that you would have to believe.
Right.
Yeah.
It was an absolute statement. There's no such thing as absolute truth. Are you absolutely sure? It can't handle the two. This is what's really happening. So when these things are real, you have to understand that even though you see the fallacy in it, and I'm not equating people who have different sexual preference to drug addicts, but I want to make a point. When I used to sell crack, right? I used to sell drugs. And I can't, it was wild because I would watch people sometimes get high right in front of me and stuff. And what they would do is the old school, you don't got no real pipe, no glass pipe. That's all television. What most people do is they get a soda can, they dent that joint. There's a little hole in the middle. They put some ashes around the outside. They put that piece of crack on it, and they hold the opening of the can. When you open the can and drink out of it, they put that right there. They light it, and they're sucking out of that, right? That's the real pipe that I saw. People won't walk around with no glass pipes. You can't always have them. They break easy, but you can have a soda can all day, right? Mm-hmm. I would watch people get high off that, and they would just and they thought they were good. Yeah. Because they felt good, they thought they were in good shape. And I'm looking at them like, man, your life is a wreck. I mean, thank you for the money, but your life is a wreck, right?
Right.
There's a sense where when you believe what you believe, even if other people challenge that, you could be like, your life could be a wreck. And it's like, well, I'm sorry. This is what
when I was watching Snowfall and the one young boy was talking about an example.
You watching the new season?
Yeah, he was talking about coming back from Africa. And he was giving an analogy and using the example of slavery and the crackhead. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, listen, he said, I think what I did was worse selling crack because if I would have given if they would have offered freedom to any of the slaves in the transatlantic slave trade, they would have taken that freedom and ran. 100%. You know what I'm saying? But if you would have offered freedom to a crackhead from that drug, they ain't taking it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that comes back to what you're saying, the ideology, what you believe, what you think is true. And, I'm sure there would have been slaves that would have thought it was better to stay with their slave owners. There would have been, it probably would have been
Django,
some of them.
Samuel Jackson and Django.
It probably would have been some of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying that's a common thing, but again, the truth still stands. You would have offered freedom to a slave. They would have taken it and ran. The crackhead, they ain't running from that rock, man. They run to the rock.
That's what's sad. So thanks for making me feel worse about me selling crack. So thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm just saying, like, with your example, with the ideology and what you believe, you cling to it much more.
Nah, we used to say, like, I'm a pipe head, too, because I'm on their schedule. Right. I got to be up when they want to get high, and I go to sleep when they don't. You know what I'm saying? So,
you just had a different drug. Your drug was money in the game.
Yeah, mine was the money I got from them. Right. Was the crack I sold to them, right? All right, so Sexual proponents of modern sexuality shares their faith. They expect conversion to their beliefs. This is sexual action community. So I'm all messing the words up. Joe Biden. Come on, man.
You can't handle the tooth.
You know, can't handle it. I can't handle myself right now. Number 3, they find their identity in their beliefs. Number 4, they believe what they believe is absolute truth. This is organized religion, and sexuality is officially an organized religion. Oh, yeah. Number 5, they worship the God of their faith. They worship the God of their faith. And I would say the God of their faith is, well, spiritually speaking, we know who the God of their faith is. It's the enemy, Satan. But I don't think many of them think they're worshiping that. So I think the God of their faith is I think it's two things, and it's different for different people. One, I think, is what we talked about. I think is pleasure. The God of their faith is pleasure. But the other thing I think is their faith. The God of their faith is acceptance. There is listen, I mean, don't get me wrong. Fear of man, a lot of people struggle with wanting people to like them and accept them. Right? And you do things. But this is a group of people that seems to demand that. Like it's almost like it's intrinsic to their identity is that you have to approve and be an ally. There might be things that you don't have to approve of me being a Christian. I don't really care. Like it's not my faith, my being a pastor, my being a big black dude, I don't care if you accept it or not. The only thing that will bother me is if you don't get my album, if you don't like the music. That will offend me because I can rap, right? But for the most part, my identity is not measured in whether or not other people approve of me. Now, don't get me wrong. Everyone wants that to some degree. There's a reason why when my kids or my wife say things about me and honor me, why I'm affected emotionally. Because it matters. It means something. There's a moment of acceptance and approval that is innate in all of us. But I've never seen a community like this, based on sexual, that are so connected to you need to approve. Like if you don't approve of this, these people will kill themselves. You know, there's this like mutilation, manipulation, right? Like I've never seen that before, where so much of their identity is acceptance, approval. Yeah. And so they latch on to anyone that will do that. And
it's because approval comes with justification.
100%.
You know, approval comes side by side with justification, man. If they can get others to approve, they feel justified in doing so, especially if they can get others to agree that they've been victimized for 100%. So long. Yeah.
That's 100%. I agree.
For sure.
And so I think what you get is, so I think that's the God of their faith. I think it's pleasure and approval. Now, obviously, spiritually speaking, I think it's the enemy. I think it's Satan. But most people, when I say that, I'm thinking of the God that most people think that they're wrestling with what they're doing. Not, they don't necessarily think they actually think we're satanic, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. See, this is why I love Brandon. But Brandon will bring you back. Brandon said, speaking of which, that song "Death Becomes You" from your first album really hit. That's 2006, The Crucible. Hey. I was Voice back then.
The Crucible.
Hey, go get the music, man.
For real. You're missing out if you ain't getting the music, man.
Pick it up. Kirk Kennedy. Go on your iTunes, go on Spotify, and download Kirk Kennedy and just tell me what you think. I can rap. Like
Word up.
New album coming out. It's
gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard.
I'm gonna expect people to convert and believe in it. I find my identity in my bars. I believe that what I'm spitting is absolutely dope.
Yes.
I'm worshiping God on the beats. And lastly, encourage those who share the same faith. Right? So within the sexual acronym community, just like Christians, like we encourage people who share the same faith.
For sure.
We encourage people who believe what we believe. We encourage them with that. It's the same thing within the sexual acronym community. They encourage those who share the same faith. And this is what's interesting. And this is where Dave Chappelle's special a couple years ago really broke the mold here. When he did that joke about the sexual acronym community, and he was saying how the L of that community and the G, they're usually okay, but the B they don't really like, because it's like, man, choose one.
You talking about the car analogy?
Yeah, the car analogy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then the T comes in, and everybody, and really, if you're honest, like they don't get along. We this is what I mean. We lump them together as we use this acronym, but they're not all like they get along. Because if you're in the T of the sexual acronym, then you want if you're a T woman, then you want the L's to accept you, and they're like, no,
Right.
you're not. I'm not attracted to you. You're
Well, I mean, the T makes the L and the G void.
Right.
Like, it
exactly.
makes them non-existent.
Right. So again, but there's a sense where you encourage those who have the same faith. You feel like we're together in this. So this is where the parades, the marches, the logos, all of that stuff are. I mean, in the history of Black America, the Black Fist, that meant something. Like even today, that's a powerful symbol. I remember in the Olympics, I forgot what year that was, in the 50s, when them black dudes won the track and field joint. This was in Germany or something.
Oh yeah, that was the 60s.
Yeah, 60s. He put he had a black glove on and put the fist up.
Yeah,
man.
There was three of them. Three of them did that. I think it was three of them that did that. Yeah.
But everybody knew what that meant.
Right.
There's a symbol that says we're in this together, and so with that community, it's colors, right?
Yeah. Now it's a rainbow fist.
It's a rainbow fist, right? So again, this is so again, let's review this real quick. So it's proponents of modern sexuality function in identical ways as organized religion. One, they share their faith, all right? They share what they believe. Two, they expect conversions, all right? They expect you to believe what they're sharing. Three, they find their identity in their beliefs. So their identity is wrapped up into their sexuality. Four, they believe that what they believe is absolute truth. They genuinely believe that. That's not even wordplay. They believe that what they believe is absolute truth.
Yeah.
They believe that. Five, they worship the God of their faith. And six, they encourage those who share the same faith.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's it.
There it is.
That's it. And so this is what we're in. So whether you're a believer or not, or you just have issues, whatever, you have to understand this is what you're up against. This is what's really going on.
Yeah.
These aren't, you may look at it as just like, oh, you may look at it a certain way, like people are just, let me say this. One of the things I do not like about modern evangelical Christians, particularly those of us who claim to be reformed, is we have this view that we're like God in the sense that we can like, it's almost like we can be a little bit imprecatory a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah.
So imprecatory psalms are like David calling out God to judge his enemies. And you got Luke 9, where the Samaritans wouldn't let Jesus through to go to Jerusalem, and they were like, should we call down fire from heaven, right? There's this sense where in a lot of believers today, we view people as enemies of God and opposing God and this and that. And God is allowed to say that because he knows everything. But God never tells us to treat people like that. So you get 2 Timothy 2:26, it says, look, perhaps he will grant them repentance since they have been taken captive to do the devil's will, right?
Right.
So God doesn't see them. I mean, there are verses where he says, I laugh at the mockers and scoff at them. But we kind of act like we're allowed to do that. And so we see these people as almost like this, I know what I'm doing and I don't care. And there's going to be some people who do that for sure. But a lot of people are not. They're just genuine people who really have a different proclivity than you, and they're confused in ways you may not be. They're struggling in certain ways that you may not be. And I think what I hate is when we talk about these folks. And again, I'm going to push back strongly because I don't agree. But that's different than being like, I don't look at these folks like they're just rebelling against God. And yes, in the grand scheme of things, sure. But when I was rebelling against God, I was just ignorant of it. It wasn't like I thought, oh yeah, Jesus died on the cross, but I don't care. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. There are some people who are going to be like that. But the vast majority of people are not thinking that way.
And even if they are thinking that way, it's still our job to serve them and to still, if they come to our church, to serve them, to care for them some way, like that's the thing is people have forgotten that our job is to serve people, whether they're the wheat or the tares. Like, that's what we're supposed to do. How can we not have the same mentality of our God that would leave the same amongst each other until it's time for judgment, until he separates them? I mean, I think what it is people just don't want to suffer the work. They don't want to suffer the work of having to deal with both the wheat and the tares within their congregation. Like, you got people who are going to act a fool that still profess faith. And you're going to say maybe they're not of the flock for whatever reason, but you got to work through that process of teaching them and enduring them and suffering with them and suffering because of them, you know, and them even suffering because of you, because you ain't going to do everything right all the time either. I mean, that's the reality. You know what I'm saying? So
I know good and well I don't, famo.
Right. I mean, I think we forget that, you know what I'm saying, that we're supposed to endure together. If we have a theology of suffering, that involves relationships and enduring together. We just forget that, man. We want the easy route. The easy route is to get everybody to believe what I believe, to force them out of submission. I'm the king here, rep well, and go out there and conquer the world because that's what Jesus would have us do. Okay, but you're sending out a lot of immature people that ain't being discipled, and
100%.
They saying a lot of wild stuff, you know what I mean? Like, fam, it is what it is, man.
So I want to close with this because I want to put a biblical perspective on what we're talking about, right? I'm going to read from John 12:44 through 50. All right, listen to what Jesus said. Here's what Jesus said here. This is tonight, Thursday night, before he was to be crucified on Friday morning. All right, here's what Jesus said. Some of his last words before the crucifixion. And Jesus cried out and said, "Whoever believes in me, believes not in me, but in him who sent me. And whoever sees him who sent me, I have come into the world as light, so whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness.
Amen.
If anyone hears my words and does not keep them, I do not judge him. For I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world.
That's right.
The one who rejects me and does not receive my words has a judge. The word that I have spoken will judge him on the last day. For I have not spoken of my own authority, but the Father who sent me has himself given me a commandment, what to say and what to speak.
Right.
And I know that his commandment is eternal life. What I say, therefore, I say as the Father has told me." So let me make sure you understand what's happening here. Jesus is saying, I didn't come here to judge the world. I came to save it. And if they don't believe in me, then the word that they did will judge them on the last day.
That's right.
Let me tell you why this is important. Because many of us right now, we treat non-believers, particularly those in that sexual acronym community, we can treat them like it's the last day. But Jesus didn't come to judge the world. And he didn't say to the church, "Hey, I didn't come to judge the world, but y'all go ahead and do that until I get back."
Right.
That's not what he said.
Yeah.
He said the last day will judge them.
Yeah.
Right? So until the last day, they should be treated, all unbelievers should be treated in a particular manner. And I think what's happened in the church is we have forgotten that, and I can forget this too, I can struggle with this, because I hate when I see people who are trying to impose on me something I have to believe that I think is morally and biblically wrong, and you're trying to tell me I have to believe it to actually be biblically loving. It does tempt me at times, and I can, I have to watch myself even in these kinds of talks, because I can be tempted not so much at every person who struggles, but particular people who try to antagonize you into submitting to what they think is biblical truth or truth for whatever.
Right.
And so, but this scripture is always one that's humbling, because Jesus is saying, I didn't come to judge the world, right? The word that I've spoken will judge him on the last day. So we as believers, particularly my fellow Calvinist brothers, my Reformed brothers, like, you got to stop judging people, fam.
Yeah.
You be calling people out left and right, like, as if you truly believe, if you truly believe your theological disposition and you're a Calvinist, then you have no leg to stand on, no confidence to stand on, because you were chosen before the foundation of the world. You didn't find God. You didn't choose God. He chose you. Fam, pipe down.
I mean, if the church is built on the foundation of the apostles, of course, with the message of Christ, all we have to do is look at how the apostles functioned.
100%.
That's all we got to do is watch how church history took place. Read the book of Acts. See how they dealt with each other, how they brought correction for certain things. I mean, if you just deal with Peter and the Judaizers and Paul bringing correction in Galatians, like, you can see how Paul came, like, they were coming to the defense of the lost to bring them Christ. You know what I'm saying? Like, they weren't acting like zealots. They wasn't out there being Barabbas. Like, they was being sheep amongst wolves.
100%, bro.
Lamb before the slaughter. Wise as serpents, but harmless as doves. Like, while they dragging their cross. That's how we're supposed to function as Christians. So I just don't get the mentality of, this. When you consider spiritual warfare, it's weighty enough.
Right. Well said, bro.
Than to have to add this physical concept of being a beast in the world as a Christian and this Sergeant Slaughter guy. Like, yo, the spiritual aspect is so gangster when it comes to warfare.
Right.
Like, you should be diving there. If you want to be tough, you want to be hard, you want to be built up in the Lord and strong and ready to take on everybody, dive into the spiritual aspect of warfare.
Yeah.
I mean, because most people, like, I'm doing a song right now that deals with the concept of people being so puffed up about how they have to protect their homes from a physical aspect, and they just completely forget the spiritual aspect of what's going on in their homes.
Yeah. Well
and it's completely unguarded. And meanwhile, their home is under attack.
100%.
But they look like spiritual warriors on the outside.
So having said that, what would you recommend people do? Like, what do you think people should do to combat what you just said about just like not looking at the spiritual warfare in their homes and so to speak?
You mean like the dude that is doing that is confused?
Yeah,
or
the person who may be a Christian and who's focusing on, as you said, like the physical protection, but ignoring the reality of what's going on in his home.
Yeah, I mean, you have to pray for clarity, man. And you got to be reading your Bible. Like, if you read the Bible, you just go through, read the Old Testament, and you see how the Lord deals with sin and with man's heart and with nations as a whole and individuals. And then you incorporate that with the New Testament and the way Christ fulfills the law and does everything that he does. You cannot help but be entangled in the spiritual aspect of life. You know what I'm saying? Like, and what that means to you as far as, who am I longing for? Am I longing for this God that has kept the people and has constantly shown mercy, has constantly shown grace, sent his own son to die for me, and it's promising to receive me and come back to me? Like, am I longing for him, or am I longing for other things? Like, you have to ask yourself these questions. If death is imminent, you're facing death, what comes after? What are you facing when you die? If you're going to face the King, the ruler of all things, who created all existence, are you preparing yourself for that moment?
Right.
I mean, you got to ask yourself that. And how does your life line up with that preparation? Does it make sense? Or is it contrary to it? Are you one of the 7 virgins that's got their lamp filled up? Like,
all right, so Strack, speak to the person who, because I think you're dead on, but speak to the person who is challenged by that. Like, what do you say to the person who believes but is struggling to kind of have that perspective consistently?
Start to ask yourself, what do you value in life? What are your greatest values? What do you wake up in the morning thinking about? What you long for on a daily basis? Do they line up with what you see in Scripture? But if those values line up with what you see in Scripture, then you can say, all right, I'm doing something right here. I'm learning, I'm growing as a Christian. But if those values don't line up with pick up your cross and follow me, I mean, it's not hard to figure out how those values line up.
So how would you encourage somebody who's listening to you and who may feel discouraged by what you're saying? Because they might, as they're hearing you talk, they might feel like, yeah, man, I'm not where I should be. I'm not, like, how would you encourage that person?
The Lord's mercy is new every day. every day the light is shining upon your life. Like the Lord is shining upon you. When you wake in the morning, you got a fresh new start to get it popping with the Lord. Read, pray, seek after him. Ask him to change the desires of your heart that they would align with his desires. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just the reality. Delight yourself in the Lord and he'll give you the desires of your heart. If you delight yourself into him, he becomes the desires of your heart. True. And he gives you 100%. All of himself. 100%. I mean, he promises to give you himself. Like you're talking about the God who breathed things into existence, fam. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, his mercies are new every day. It's the Lord. When the Lord has given you mercy in Christ, you cannot overcome that mercy. You cannot overcome that grace. You cannot overcome his desire to teach you about himself. Like the Lord wants to teach you about himself. Yeah, well, you are indwelt by his spirit. So ask him to. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, well said. I think we overcomplicate things, man. We really do. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think we do overcomplicate.
Yeah, we really do, brother.
Yeah, I agree with that. So let it be written. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for riding with us tonight, man. We're grateful to talk about these things. To those who may not have liked the content or offended at it, we get it. We understand in the culture that we live in. All I would ask you to consider is that what you strongly agree with, like we strongly feel this way too. Like we don't, it's not like what you strongly feel should be more important to me than what I strongly feel. It's the same thing. So if you are watching this and you disagree or we understand that. We understand. We're just a couple of dudes on a podcast. This is just what we think and feel, right? We think we're accurate and all of that stuff. We get that some of you may like this episode. Some of you may unfollow the channel. Cool. We understand that. That's fine. But just, I would say this, if that's you, please know that whatever your strong disagreement is true to you as well. Like, just like what we think is true to us. So it's not like what's true to you, I should think, oh, that's really truth, but I should not think what I think is truth. Like, it's just not realistic. So we're not trying to offend you. So crazy. But truth sometimes is very, very offensive.
It can be. Very much so. Especially in today's world.
Truth can be very offensive. So,
statements as a whole.
We appreciate y'all. Having said that, look, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I know we was going in a little bit today on some of that, so I appreciate it. I will be continuing with day 7, I think tomorrow. Tomorrow's day 7. Is it day 7? Is it Friday? Yeah, it's day 7 tomorrow. So we're going to keep the party going day 7.
It's a long way to go. 93 to go.
93 more to go, baby. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta keep the party going. I think I got something for y'all tomorrow, so I'm excited about that. Listen, new music is coming up, fam.
Yes.
New music is coming up. I got a project. I'm gonna be slowly unveiling how it's gonna come out, but I got a project called I'm Warning You, Do Not Listen to This Album. Mm-hmm. That's what the album is called. I'm warning you, do not listen to this album. Yep. And once you hear the album, you'll understand why I warned you not to listen to it. All right?
And then I got a joint dropping called The Art of Hearing.
Yeah.
Oh, ironic enough. So
yeah, The Art of Hearing.
Yeah, we definitely got music dropping, man. Y'all need to be on the lookout for that for sure.
Definitely, man. My son, Boom Crusher.
Hey, there he is.
So I'm talking about, it's my dude right here. It's my dude.
Get him to 10K.
Son. Y'all go follow me. My son be having, do you know he got a video, bro? Do you know?
Yeah?
Look, get him to 10K. That's what I'm talking about, son. Tell him. Let's get to 10K, Beezer. Hey, look, you know, hey, Bees, if you watching, come in the room real quick. Come in the office. Let's show the people who my son is, right? Do you know that this dude be having, like, he got a video that got 103K.
Word?
Come here, Beezer. This is my son. He be watching. He be loving his dad. Look, come here.
Yeah.
This my dude.
What up,
right
youngin'?
Here. Yo. This my dude. This my dude. This my youngest right here.
Y'all, what's good, y'all? My name is Y'all make sure you go sub. I'm so close to 500 subscribers and watch my sturdy videos because you know my sturdy be good all the time, bro.
Look at this dude. Look at this dude, man.
That's what I'm talking about.
Scrub. This dude got a video. Hey, what video was that? You got 103,000 likes. Or views or whatever. Which one?
The 110K views. That was the Buzz Lightyear video.
Okay, right. This man will be having 110K views.
That's what's
on
up.
This channel.
That's
my
what's up.
Joint don't get that.
And that hair looking good too. That hair's looking good.
You got fresh today. You got fresh for Easter. All right, get out of here, you scrub. All right, y'all. We appreciate y'all, man. Thanks for riding with us. I'm Kirk Kennedy. He's Strack the Wolverine.
Come on,
and
already.
We will see y'all next week, man. We out of here. Grace and peace. I will see y'all tomorrow. Dun, dun, dun.